Now, if the reports are true, Chelsea are looking to sign Jeremy Jacquet for a record €65 million in this January window, which will make him one of the youngest and most expensive defenders at his age. Now, in this video, we're going to analyse and talk about where he fits this Chelsea side and why he is such a great player, and just what you can expect for Jeremy Jacquet to come in to start for this club. So let's get into it. Now, many of you might be wondering why Chelsea are spending so much money on a young defender from Rennes, and I will instantly tell you that this guy is probably the best centre-back talent in the world and one of the best centre-backs already at his age. He's an incredible player and already one of the elites with insane potential. Now, originally I spoke about Jeremy Jacquet on my other channel about 5 months ago for Arsenal and talked about his pros and cons, and this season I think he's developed really nicely for Rennes, where we have seen maybe some of the weaknesses that I think are still there, but also a lot of the positives, and I do think especially his on-the-ball work has got really good. Now, first of all, I do want to speak about the off-the-ball work, the defensive part of the game, which I think is probably the most important thing for Chelsea fans right now. Now, Jeremy Jacquet is someone that is really, really quick. He's a tall defender with his size, and he loves pushing out of the defence. What I mean by that is that if a guy's going to receive the ball just in front of the defensive line, inside the pocket, he is the guy that will go out to that player and try and be physical to win the ball back. Now, he is really physical and really good at covering these areas in and behind him, but something that he actually does quite a lot is that he will basically go up to a forward and match them, so basically stand there in his way, kind of jockey in, you could say Van Dijk style way, and then he will wait for that player to do something. If they take too long, he will then wrap his foot around to try and win the ball back. I actually think this is very similar to someone like William Saliba for Arsenal, because when he does this, he kind of goes to a player, he's not overly physical in a challenge, but he will come out sometimes, but then he just kind of waits for that player to make a mistake or give him the ball too much where he sticks a foot out, and it's something that I do think can be very good. But this pace as well that we talk about, being able to push out from the defence to win the ball back, is incredible as well, running back behind. Now, I wouldn't say you want Jeremy Jacquet to be this last defender, someone that's in the box doing last-ditch blocks and tackles. He's more of a guy that is going to be better, I'd say, away from the box. I don't think his box defending is particularly amazing. But a lot of the time, if you play a higher line like Rennes do sometimes, and you've got a ball over the top of them, Jeremy Jacquet is brilliant at running back and covering that ground, obviously with his brilliant pace and his composure when he wins the ball, which I think is a major part. And also, not only is his tackles really high for Rennes this season and last season, his interceptions are also incredibly high as well, because he's a very intelligent player at kind of looking at the game and waiting for things to happen rather than always being super aggressive. And I do think there's a place and time for super aggressive defenders in the Premier League, but I do think sometimes Chelsea need a more composed head at the back, and I think that's why this profile of player really suits them. Now, obviously, when you win the ball back though, you want Jeremy Jacquet and you want your defender to be very good on the ball and able to do something, which just has been another issue that Chelsea have had this season. People like Tosin were actually brought in because his brilliant on the ball work he had in the Premier League before at Fulham, but he hasn't necessarily really got great at that in this club. And I also think there's some sort of almost hesitation from a lot of the defence at Chelsea, where when they do get really highly pressed, they don't want to play it too far long quickly, and they want to pass it out with the team or find it to one of their carriers who can run up the field. And I think sometimes the centre-backs definitely do lose the ball in big areas, which can see big goals. Now, Jeremy Jacquet, in terms of how he is on the ball, is one of the best talents you will see. What I really like about him is that he always has the intention to go forward. He's not someone that really dilly-dallies or takes his time, which we will talk about can be a negative as well. But I think something that's really good about that is that when he receives the ball in these areas, let's say he's pushed out of the defence, he's won the ball back, he wants to get players in behind quickly. A quick pass over the top of the defence or around the defence could be really good to get some of your players in. But also, he is really good at putting the ball in these little pockets in the channel. He will take risks on the ball. And not only does he do these little passes where he wants 1-2s, wants players to play on the inside, which I think any team could really want in the Premier League with how wide areas are really being catered for right now. But I also think in terms of how Chelsea play, they can bait players into the middle, maybe give the ball to someone like Caicedo or Enzo in that midfield. They can bait players towards him and put the ball out wide, where you can get the space for the one-on-ones where you want to get Neto and Esteval and whoever you're playing at the wings to get one-on-one and get into the box. Now, one of the big benefits you see from that is actually in build-up more than ever, because in build-up, when he's got the ball in these deeper areas, if he's trying to see a chance or trying to get through this block where they're pressing him, what he's very good at, Jeremy Jacquet, is he's a good dribbler, a good carrier of the ball, but especially through that first line. He really does wait for the player to step up towards him. He will then go past that player, and then he'll be able to put a pass inside after carrying it past that first line. I know this might be a little bit of a bad example because of you Chelsea fans, but actually a great example example of someone that can do this is William Saliba, and we saw that against Chelsea in the Carabao Cup, where he baits Enzo Fernandez in, he sidesteps him and goes past him, and then he tries to make that pass through. He took the risk and went past that first and second line of phase of press in this moment, and then tries to put the ball through to the attackers, who have then got that space because the players have been pulled out, which here you can see Cucurella is in midfield. This is something Jeremy Jacquet is very good at doing. I wouldn't say he's necessarily the most patient player in the world on the ball, but he can just bait players in, wait for the moments to open, and then pass the ball inside. And if you're going to have someone like João Pedro or Liam Delap come deeper and want to have a little one-touch pass into the wingers or out into the midfielders, then I do really think that can work with that way. So that's something definitely to think about if he joins the club. And I do honestly think that his dribbling is at a really, really high level. Jeremy Jacquet as well, obviously he's a very tall guy. He's about 6'3", 6'4". He obviously plays mostly on right centre-back for this team at Rennes. So he is used to these sort of angles and being able to take players on who are coming at him quick. And physically, he's at that level because you need to be in Liga 1. Now, also, he's sometimes played right back, and I think that's down to the pace that he has and his carrying ability, which we've spoke about. Like, I think you can really use that in a right back situation if you want to. Wouldn't go for it long term, but let's say you have some injuries. James isn't there, Gusto isn't there. You can definitely fit him in that role if you have to. And his on the ball work comes from a real place of confidence a lot of the time. His attacking stats are actually quite good for centre backs, and although he hasn't scored a huge amount of goals in his career at Rennes in this time there, he is someone that I have quoted for before that he's actually a very good second phase player. What I mean by that is he's not necessarily always physical in aerial duels, and that's actually something he really does struggle with. When he runs out, he kind of has to be on the floor ground duels because then he can really get his feet around them. But aerially, I do think he still needs to kind of learn when to jump and head the ball. But actually, that's so common for young defenders around Europe that you see all the time. So it's not something you really worry about too much. If you pair him next to a more aggressive centre-back from the aerials and first phases, then I think that could be something really good. His movement in the box and his movement just generally as a centre-back is kind of mental. There's times where he's overlapping, he's underlapping, he just makes that extra run if he sees the space there. And also in the box, he's not the guy that's going to win that initial cross header from the corner. He's the guy that will run off it. Very much like we talk about Marc Guéhi, that's very much the same sort of area with him, despite Jeremy Jacquet being really tall. So maybe if you can figure out that sort of first aerial threat, he can actually get really good at that. So it's not the worst at all. Now, we alluded to it earlier, but I do think one of his biggest weaknesses is that sometimes because we talk about this attacking intent that he has with the team, that he does tend to rush things a little bit too much. Now, it's funny because in defense, when he wins the ball back, sometimes he is very calm, I'd say, in the deeper areas. And I'd say off the ball, he is a very, very calm individual, doesn't overstep the mark very often. There's a few times he's got some stupid red cards by making some poor challenges, but often he tries to keep things quite calm and collected in the defense. But when he has the ball and there's nothing really going on, especially when they're sitting against low to mid blocks and they're kind of giving Rennes a lot of the ball, which isn't a common thing that happens all the time, but obviously Chelsea would expect that to happen a bit more. You often see him get quite frustrated sometimes and want to force things through, early passes, early carries, and then sometimes he'll just kick the ball too hard and no one will get onto it. Obviously, this is something you can coach out of him. This is obviously something that's fine, but he will have to have more passes attempted and more touches in this Chelsea team that he does at Rennes. Right now, he's not at a huge amount for them, and I think it's down to him not really wanting to waste time on the ball. He wants to go a bit quick sometimes, and this is why I don't think his passing is as good as it could be. I think the idea is right, I think the technique is right, and I think he can do some incredible passes, especially switches out wide, I think are really good, but not doing them all the time. Picking and choosing when to do them is something you're going to have to teach him, which will come into the fact he is only 20, and actually his sample size, even though he is talked about at such a high level, is only about 30 games in Liga 1, so he's not played a huge amount as well in the top 5 league. And although I don't think he's going to have to do much progressive work in terms of attacking play when you've got people like James and Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez and Palmer all near you, so he's not really going to have the burden to be forced to do this, which actually might help him right now, and then in the long run he can develop it. I do think he's going to bring some intelligence and incredible talent to this Chelsea defence. The big thing about buying defenders who are young is that can they keep up physically, and usually this is why you see common teams go for Liga and centre-backs just normally, not even being these big stars. Yoro's another one, for example. Kushunov was another one, where people have spent huge amount of money on them when they're teenagers or very young players because they showed a good physical level in a league which is actually seen as the second physical league behind the Premier League being the Ligue 1. And I think that's instantly where he's going to be great. He's a lanky sort of type of player that is this dribbling effect player, but because he's so big and because he can just dominate players, I do think it obviously would be a lot harder to do that in the Prem against some of the big strikers in the league, but he still will give it a good go. And there's so many like similarities to Fofana, to Saliba, other defenders that have come from the league and at young ages, which I already see in him. And arguably this guy is one of the biggest talents that you will see, especially for that price that you're paying, but you expect that when he's so good. Now, in terms of where he fits Chelsea, I will say that this guy has to play on the right side. The angles in terms of where he passes it from with his right foot are much better than the left. Not saying he can't come down the left and switch the ball. He can, and he has showed to do that. But I think you will want to make him more comfortable than ever, so he'll have to play right centre-back. And that is weird because that is where Chalobah is, who I actually think is probably the guaranteed starter for Chelsea at this point. I know you could have conversations about the other side, and maybe Fofana's come in a little bit. Obviously, Tosin picked up that injury the other day. I don't know how bad it is personally. And I don't think this guy's going to be playing right back because ultimately Reece James is that player. But then maybe if Reece James moves into midfield, if you've got an injury or something happened to Caicedo, then yeah, Jacquet can come in right back if you have to. But then even then, you might still want Gusto anyway. So with all this situation and with the amount of money being paid, he's going to have to be developed quickly and he's going to have to play. You don't spend 60 mil on a player that is 20. He isn't like a teenager by any means. He is very young, but not like the youngest you can get. He is a player that you seriously need to play, and he's going to have to get into this team. So I don't know if that means you move Chalobah over. I don't know if Fofana and Jacquet are going to be the long-term partnership, but he's going to have to play instead of Chalobah in that right centre-back for at least some of the games when he comes to the end of the season. I expect Chalobah to start there for the time coming. And I do think the tendency with Chelsea fans and a lot of people that look at Chelsea signings is the case, especially when they buy youngsters, is to look, oh, look, there's another youngster coming in. He's not going to be played. He's going to be sold. But obviously the money in this one, I think does change that for a lot of people who may not know who Jacquet is. And also he's one of the best centre-backs in the world in terms of touted. And you can see the teams that have been linked to him over the last couple of years that have wanted him so much. And there's a reason for that. This guy's on the ball work looks so encouraging and is definitely a very big part of his game. And he seems physically and calm in defence. Yes, there's areas to work on like we mentioned, but every defender has the same. And I'm sure that it's not going to be a clean player right away because he is so young and he has to develop, but he's going to be incredible. And I think this will be a Chelsea signing that is very big to their defence. But let me know in the comments what you guys think about this signing. Do you think it's a good signing overall? And do you think he will bring a lot to this Chelsea side? Thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it as always. And please like and subscribe for any more. See you in the next one.